Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Hollow Knight Silksong. I have been waiting many years to finally be able to play this sequel to such a legendary game. And I know that this casual review is coming out pretty late from the game's release, but I actually did buy this game from day one and I have been playing it since. It's just due to the difficult nature and open-endedness of the game, I found myself playing other games in between playthroughs of this. Of course, I did have really high hopes for this game, and I did expect them to be met. I will say right off the bat that they were met at the end of the day. Instead of playing as the Vessel, who is a silent protagonist, you play as Hornet, one of the side characters in Hollow Knight. Now, unlike the Vessel, Hornet can talk and does converse with the NPCs of this world, which kind of gives me a little more of a clue as to what is going on in this game compared to my playthrough of Hollow Knight. Basically, Hornet was captured from Hallownest and taken to Farloom for some unknown reason. She then breaks free from her cage as she is being transported somewhere and finds herself near the bottom of this world called Farloom. And I think it's interesting that in Hollow Knight, you kind of start at the top of the world and then you're like burrowing yourself down into the deep darkness of the world. And in Farloom, you start more near the bottom of the world and you kind of have to work your way all the way up. And that's the overall theme of the game, at least near the beginning of the game. And you find yourself amongst a bunch of other bugs that are trying to make a pilgrimage up to this giant holy citadel. Basically, they've been promised all these riches and glory if they make their way all the way up to the tippity top of Farloom to this glorious citadel. And they're all kind of mindlessly making this dangerous pilgrimage. Obviously, most of them are not going to make that because the pathway up to the citadel is full of dangers not fit for the common bug. Hornet is no common bug though, and so after grit and determination, if you do have the patience and fortitude, you can make it all the way up to the citadel. And I think I'm going to leave the lore and story spoilers off right there because although this game has been out for many months at this point, I'm still in that spoiler territory range, and so I will just say that the pilgrimage up to the citadel, it's more like just the tip of the iceberg. Now, just like how she is portrayed in Hollow Knight, Hornet has a lot more versatility than the Vessel does. She kind of has this, instead of doing like this downward pogo, she can do this diagonal slash. She has a lot of versatility. She's doing all these flips. She can run. She can grab onto edges. And she also has access to these tools, and you will unlock more tools as you play through the game, but these tools are essentially like your access to ranged weapons. So you can imagine just how powerful that would be in a very difficult game like Silksong. These tools do come at a cost, however. You have to use a resource called shards in order to craft more tools, and so while shards don't seem that big of a deal and tools don't seem that big of a deal to a novice, an expert at this game will tell you that tools are absolutely essential if you are going to make your way through this difficult game. Another cool thing about her combat and her moveset is she can get access to these things called crests, and these change up her attacks in meaningful ways. And so if you find yourself really hating this diagonal downward slash that she does, and you kind of want to go to a more traditional downward pogo strike like how the Vessel had, there is a crest for that. And like most people, I believe, once I did discover this crest, I stuck with it for the rest of the game. But I do find myself wondering, like, maybe I should have experimented more with these different crests, because some of them did seem pretty cool and access some unique gameplay aspects to the game. However, I just got so used to this one specific crest that I felt scared to stray away from what was muscle memory at this point. Now, you are dealing with shards in order to craft your tools, but there is another resource, this being the rosary beads, and this is the main currency that you will be using to buy different upgrades for Hornet. The frustrating thing is rosary beads don't drop off of any old enemy that you defeat, unlike in Hollow Knight, and so they only drop from specific specific enemies, and rosaries are very, very scarce. Bosses don't drop the rosaries. If you do find rosaries hidden in secret areas, usually it's maybe like 10 or 15 rosaries, and I found myself wanting more and more rosaries through my whole gameplay. My brother played through this game, and he said that rosaries become inconsequential near the end of the game. I disagree. I think that rosaries are always very, very important, and it is devastating when you lose a handful of rosaries to a death. Because how Silksong works, it's very similar to Hollow Knight. When you die, then you leave a silk cocoon behind in the location that you died, and then it does the Dark Souls thing where you have to go from your most recent checkpoint and go all the way back to your cocoon and destroy it. Unlike in Hollow Knight, though, the cocoon is actually pretty beneficial. In Hollow Knight, you had to like defeat your black spirit thing that your body left behind when you died. In this one, if you destroy your cocoon, then you will revive all of your silk. And silk is like your mana in this game. This is what you use to heal. This is what you use to do your special abilities. And in a game like this, trust me, you will want to be able to heal as much as possible. Healing also works a little differently than in Hollow Knight. Instead of charging up and healing up one hit point, you're basically immobilized in place for a certain amount of time, and then you heal 3 hit points. And you will need as many hit points as possible, because even at the beginning of the game, you will encounter plenty of enemies who do 2 hit points worth of damage. This is the type of game that feels really difficult at the beginning of the game, but it becomes a little more manageable as you access more upgrades, both in your health, in your silk, in your tools, and just in your overall confidence in your gameplay and your skills. The cool thing about these rosaries, though, is if you aren't confident in your gameplay just quite yet, or you are going to be encountering a tough challenge, you are able to talk to any vendor and they can string up your rosaries for a small fee, and this allows you to not lose a string of rosaries when you die. So you can hoard up these rosary strings until you are ready to make that really big purchase and then activate them all at once. Now, would it be a Metroidvania game if there wasn't a ton of exploration? And the map in this game is huge. Now, it's been a while now since I have played through Hollow Knight, but I want to say that this map is almost double the size of Hollow Knight. It's crazy because there are, well, I don't know, this might be minor spoiler, but there are 3 acts in Silksong, and Act 1 is you going up to the top of the Citadel, and then you think that you're near the end of the game, and then the Citadel itself is like its own giant map full of different regions that you have to explore in Act 2. There's so many breakable walls that you think are just going to lead you to some rosaries or a shard or an item, and only to find out like there's a whole other area behind just this one breakable wall. And so I find myself often wondering, like, who could possibly get 100% on this game without at least some kind of internet help, because there are so many little secrets and pathways and items hidden in all these little nooks and crannies and events, specific events that you have to activate. And if you're an explorer at heart, if you're an adventurer at heart, that is probably really good news to you, because there is a ton of stuff to unpack in this game. I will say, though, in terms of variety and each unique area feeling distinct, there was a ton of variety in this game, don't get me wrong, but I feel like in Hollow Knight, like, all the specific areas felt more diverse and memorable, whereas like all the locations in Silksong, a lot of them just kind of blend together over time. Like, there's like 2 or 3 poisony areas. There's a ton of like these industrial areas, and it doesn't feel as unique as like these are the fungal wastes in Hollow Knight, or this is the City of Tears in Hollow Knight. However, I have played Hollow Knight more than I have Silksong. I've done multiple playthroughs of Hollow Knight, and so perhaps over time the areas in Silksong will start to be more distinct in my brain. Surprisingly, one thing that Silksong does better than Hollow Knight are the quests. Essentially, you make these promises to bugs through the means of bulletin boards or talking with these NPCs, and you get these actual, trackable quests. Like, oftentimes you get a quest that will have you go to a certain location, and there will be a little pinpoint on your map exactly where you're supposed to go. And if you are familiar at all with Hollow Knight, that is not something that is very common. Most of the time you are having to buy your maps, you are having to place your own pins, you are having to read descriptions to figure out where to go, and so the fact that they do that is very nice. Thank you. I will take whatever I can get. But the weird thing is, like, while they do show you the location of these promises that you make, for the most part, they don't show you the location of yourself unless you equipped a certain item. These crests that I brought up earlier, you can equip them with these passive benefits that gain you different bonuses, and one of them you have to actually equip to show where you are on the map. There's other things that are like combat related, like make it so you heal faster or you can run faster. This is also where you will equip the tools, so if you want to equip which tools you want to use in battle, this is where you'll do that. The game is stingier than Hollow Knight is in other aspects. For instance, in Hollow Knight, you find a bench. These are the checkpoints in the game. You sit down and you save. In this game, they charge you for everything. They charge you for the fast travel, which they did that in Hollow Knight, to be fair. They charge you for benches. They charge you for access to keys. They're constantly nickel and diming you, which is tough because rosaries are already so difficult to come by. But, by the time you get to Act 3, it's not that big of a deal. Assuming you've paid your way all the way up to this point by now, then most things should be unlocked at this point, because you pay for the bench, you can use it forever, for the most part. There are some exceptions here. Still though, I wouldn't complain about a little more of a reward for defeating a boss. I get that the aspect of getting to play more Silksong is the reward itself. I get that, but it would be nice if I got to play more Silksong and you gave me some rosaries. Sometimes they do grant you an item or an ability or something like that, but I'm used to video games have conditioned me that if I overcome this challenge, then I will be rewarded with currency or big strong item or awesome ability or something. In this one, it's cool, you get to access the next area full of even more difficult guys. Have fun. And I know that I keep saying that this game is difficult. It is. And there are ways to kind of navigate that difficulty. Either you bang your head against the wall and you get good, which is what I did for the majority of Act 1 and Act 2. But I did find out there are other upgrades. For instance, you can upgrade your weapon so that it does more damage. I went an embarrassingly long amount of time through this game before I finally realized, wait, I can upgrade my weapon. And so even the basic guys, I'm like, holy cow, these guys take 20 hits to defeat. No, upgrade your weapon whenever you can, because it makes such a difference. But of course, increasing your hit points can help a lot. And it does kind of do that Elden Ring thing where if you are stuck on a boss, usually you can backtrack and go find some meaningful upgrades for your character that will help you with that boss that you're currently stuck on. It is a very bleak world, as you would expect from a game like Hollow Knight. Lots of death around you. It's a bug-eat-bug world in this place. It's a very dark game, both figuratively and literally. You will be encountering many, many areas where you can barely see 5 bug feet ahead of you. In Hollow Knight, you were able to get an item that kind of lights up the area that you are walking around, like a light bug. I didn't find an item like that in this game, which I severely missed because it was difficult for me to see some of these really dark caverns where even just the little bugs can still do 2 hit points worth to you if they get to you. And this is coming from somebody who plays handheld outside a lot. It was pretty difficult to see sometimes. In the first Hollow Knight, you get access to this thing called the Dream dream nail, and it allows you to like hear the thoughts of dreams and of living NPCs. This game's version of that is the needle-in, and this kind of like allows you to play your needle like an instrument. I think that I like the dream nail better than the needle-in, but it's still, you know, you play this needle-in next to an NPC and you'll get to hear some of their thoughts, or it will activate a door, or you get other effects with the needle-in as you progress through the game. But I don't know, the dream nail felt more punchy. It felt more like action-y, like you're actually like hitting something to activate it rather than just slowly plucking away at this string. Now, for someone like me who enjoys playing a brand new game every week, this game did start to feel pretty overwhelming. Because I knew that there were 3 acts to the game, and I had finally beaten Act 2 of the game, and I feel like I had explored a majority of the stuff, only to find out that Act 3 is hidden away a bunch of extra fluff that I normally don't care to do. So the grub worm equivalent of Hollow Knight in this game are these fleas. There's this flea circus that is like traveling up to the Citadel as well, and these fleas have all been like captured in precarious situations, and usually if you are going off the beaten path and you overcome like a minor obstacle, you'll be awarded with rescuing one of these fleas, and as you rescue a certain amount of these fleas, then you'll be rewarded with different items, upgrades, things like that. And so after doing some research, in order to get the Act 2 ending that activates Act 3, you have to find a very decent amount of these hidden fleas, and you have to complete every wish, every promise on all of the bulletins in all of the towns that you go to. And I was kind of displeased that like the game was hiding so much of the main game behind doing a lot of these other side, more menial tasks. And don't get me wrong, like I was having a fun time playing this game, but I was, you know, maybe 25, 30 hours deep in at this point. But like I wanted to stick with it. I wanted to see what Act 3 was all about. And I'm very glad that I did, because it's not just like a short little side extra thing. No, there is like a decent chunk of like main story behind this other ending of Act 2. And so if you beat Act 2 and you see the credits roll, don't think that you have beaten the actual game, because there's really just like so much more that you do need to do if you want to see the main game at its fullest. I will also say that I ended up going through and unlocking all of the fleas, because this is a necessary step in order to upgrade your weapon further, which was absolutely necessary for me, because some of these Act 3 late game bosses gave me quite a run for my money without having that final nail upgrade. So I did rescue all of the fleas, and I did all of that stuff. But needless to say, after playing through Act 2, doing all the side flea stuff, my enthusiasm would waver back and forth about this game. You know, it seemed like after I had stepped away from this game for a couple days and I went to go play something else, I would think about Silksong, and I'd think to myself like, I don't know, is Silksong really that good of a game? But it seemed like whenever I actually kind of forced myself to sit down and play at least an hour's worth of Silksong, my tune would change quite quickly. Like, no, this game is a masterpiece. This is wonderful. But I really felt that when I forced myself to sit down and actually engage with the game. It was like when I wasn't playing it, the thought of torturing myself through the difficulty and this bleak world, it deterred me. But when you are in the thick of it and you are engaging with the world and the combat and the enemies, like, no, this game really is just this masterpiece that you don't understand until you fully engage with it. And the final boss took me ages to beat. Like, not ages. It took me like 3 days, and I would dedicate, an hour to a night trying to beat this final boss. And granted, I didn't get all of the upgrades. I technically could have done that thing where I go back and I explore all more nooks and crannies and try to upgrade my character's health or silk more. But at that point, I'm like, I just want to beat this final boss, and I just want to just roll the credits and be done with Act 3. I want that satisfaction. And so I did the thing, you know, I got good. I started recognizing attack patterns. I started looking up strategies, and by the end, I finally did beat that final boss. As far as my stats go, I know a lot of you Silksong Hollow Knight veterans are going to shake your head in shame, but it said that I had played for 38 hours and I was only 73%, and I know those are rookie numbers, but you gotta understand, you gotta be so proud of me because I stuck with the game for 38 hours and I beat Silksong's final boss. So just be excited for me for having done that. And now I understand this like whole pilgrimage thing that's a part of Act 1 and Act 2 is just like the tip of the iceberg. There's this whole lore. You find all of these lore tablets that give you these cryptic clues into the past, and certain bosses have clues, and you talk to certain NPCs and they talk in code, and so this is definitely the type of game where I'm too dumb to go through and weed through all the notes to find out exactly like what the game is like that I'm playing through. And so this is absolutely the type of game that I need to go and watch like a 2-hour YouTube video explaining like, okay, I beat Hollow Knight Silksong, but like what did I actually play through just now? Like why was I doing this in general? Like I have ideas, I have clues, but I probably have it totally wrong. So after this casual review, I'm gonna go hop on YouTube and watch a tutorial explaining all this stuff just like I did when I played through Hollow Knight. When all is said and done though, like this game is really a masterpiece. Like this is a 5 out of 5 game if you let it consume your soul. Much like the bugs of Farloom, you have to wholly devote yourself to the world of Farloom, and if you do, then you will feel Silksong's love and you will appreciate the game for the masterpiece that it truly is. And I'm constantly asking myself, like, do I like Silksong better or Hollow Knight? And I have more of an affinity with the original Hollow Knight just because I've done like multiple playthroughs. This was like the first really big Metroidvania that like resonated with me, you know? This is the one that made me realize, oh man, I like this genre. But Silksong, while I am more critical of it because I think I've played a lot more Metroidvanias at this point, I do think if I was to play these side by side, I would decide, you know, it feels a lot better to control Hornet than it does the Vessel. There are some things about Hollow Knight that I miss and certain abilities that I miss about Hollow Knight, but like the versatility and the mobility of Hornet is unmatched, and like the massive amount of content and exploration that this game has to offer is absolutely insane. If somebody told me that this was their deserted island game, I would totally get it, because like trying to get 100% on this game would be quite the feat, and then it's like if you were to start a brand new file, it'd be like you're going on an entirely different adventure, because there are so many different pathways and like ways of tackling this journey that it could make every playthrough feel unique. That's like not to mention like all the different like crests with the fighting styles. But I do think that everybody's journey when they play through this game, like they're all going to be different. Like, oh, you went to that area first? No way. I didn't discover that area until like the very end of the game, or you know, like everybody's going to discover different things or have different fighting style preferences, and that's just one of the many things that makes this game special, are the unique stories, the unique journeys. Well folks, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Hollow Knight Silksong, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!
I asked